All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something that's absolutely critical, but often flies under the radar: data quality. We're going to follow a little piece of raw data on its epic journey, from being a total mess to becoming a trusted asset that businesses literally bet their futures on. You've probably heard this old saying, right? In the world of data, it's not just a saying, it's the absolute law. It's kind of the main villain of our story today. See, if you feed a system bad data, you're going to get bad results. It doesn't matter how fancy or expensive your tech is. And the stakes? They're super high. Garbage out means bad business strategies, totally wrong conclusions, and just a massive waste of time and money. Okay, so if we're trying to avoid garbage, what are we even aiming for? What does good data actually look like? It's way more than just being correct. To be truly high quality, data has to pass a whole series of tests to prove it's fit for the job. And here they are. Think of these 6 things as the ultimate quality checklist. For our data to pass, it's got to be accurate. It has to reflect the real world. It needs to be complete, with no glaring holes. It must be consistent, so it doesn't contradict itself elsewhere. It has to be valid, following all the business rules. It needs structural integrity. And finally, it has to be unique, because nobody wants duplicates messing things up. This is the gold standard. Now, getting data to meet that gold standard, well, it's a huge job. Just look at this number, 79%. Let that sink in for a second. That's how much time data scientists can spend just collecting and prepping data before they can even start doing the cool analysis part. And this chart really just drives that point home, doesn't it? That 79% isn't some small chore. It's the vast, vast majority of the work. You know, all the exciting stuff like building predictive models and finding those game-changing insights, all of that has to wait until this tough, often thankless, foundational work is done right. So how in the world do organizations even begin to tackle this massive problem? Well, you can't just dive in without a plan. You need a map. You need a set of rules. You need a blueprint for the entire journey. And it all kicks off with something called data governance. Honestly, the best way to think of this is like a constitution for your data. It is the highest law of the land. It defines who is responsible for what data, what the standards are, and what the policies are for keeping it all safe, sound, and accurate. So if governance is the constitution, then the enterprise data architecture is kind of like the city blueprint. It lays out the entire infrastructure, all the pipelines and warehouses, showing exactly how data flows from point A to point B to point C across the whole organization. It gives the journey its structure. And here's the thing, companies don't just wake up one day with perfect data. It's a process. They move through these stages of maturity. They start at initial, where it's basically chaos. Then they start recognizing there's a problem. They move on to specifying the rules, then actively managing the process, and finally, they reach optimizing, where improving quality is just a part of their DNA. Okay, so we've got the rules and the map. Now for the action-packed part of our story. It's time for our raw data to face its biggest challenges. It's time to send it through the data gauntlet. This is what a typical data project lifecycle looks like. You get the data, you explore it, you prepare it, and then you can build your models. That third step, data preparation, that is the gauntlet we're talking about. This is where the real magic happens, turning messy, raw material into something you can actually rely on. And the gauntlet itself has these 6 major trials. First, you profile the data to figure out what you're even dealing with. Then comes the cleansing, where you fix all the obvious errors. You might need to do some reduction to make it manageable, followed by transformation to get it into the right shape. You can even enrich it with other data, and then finally, you have to validate that everything you did actually made things better. And deep inside that gauntlet, one of the sneakiest, most frustrating monsters our data has to fight is, well, it's just empty space, missing data. What do you do when the info you desperately need just isn't there? Well, the key here is that you can't just guess. You have to put on your detective hat. You have to ask, why is the data missing? If it's missing completely at random, MCAR, a simple fix like using the average value might work. But if it's missing at random, MAR, or even worse, missing not at random, MNAR, that's a clue in itself, and you need way more sophisticated ways to handle it. So let's say our data made it. It survived the gauntlet. It's been cleansed and transformed. But the journey's not quite over. Now we have to actually prove it. How do we measure its final heroic form and show that it's achieved true quality? Well, one of the best tools for this is a data quality scorecard. You can think of it as the data's final report card. It takes all those complicated metrics we talked about and boils them down to one simple, easy to understand score. It's like a big, shiny stamp of approval. And to keep a constant watch on things, you use a data quality dashboard. This is the live health monitor. It's basically like a Fitbit for your data, giving you a real-time view of its health, flagging problems the moment they pop up, and letting you see trends over time. Now this is a really important point. It's not enough to just clean up the data you have. You also have to ask, was the data collected right in the first place? Goodness of measurement asks, was our tool for measuring reliable? While goodness of fit asks, does our sample actually represent the real world? You absolutely have to have both. And finally, before our data can officially graduate, it has to pass some final exams. These are real, concrete tests. We're talking checks for null values, data freshness, making sure the volume is right, testing for uniqueness, the whole shebang. And you'll notice each of these tests ties right back to those 6 core dimensions we started with. So when you boil it all down, here's the point. This whole incredible quest, from setting up the rules to surviving the gauntlet to passing all the final tests, it's all about one thing: transformation. It's about turning messy, raw, and totally unreliable data into a powerful asset that can lead to amazing insights and drive really smart, world-changing decisions. But of course, the quest for quality never really ends. Even if you have perfectly clean, validated data, a new question pops up. Is that data telling you the objective truth? Or is it just confirming what you secretly wanted to believe all along? Now that is a question for another journey.